evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of An Evening with the Recruiter Guys. I'm Gary Turner with Hospitality Pro Search, and on the other side of my computer screen is Carrie Stinson.
How are you this evening?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good.
And how is everyone out there? We're just waiting on Laura to come to town. That's all we need. And we appreciate everybody coming back to last week was What Now is basically just gathering our wits about the 1-2 punch that we received because of the shutdown and then the furloughs and the layoffs and the uncertainty of our future employment and basically the uncertainty of a lot of things of our industry. I've been very proud of the TA and very happy with what the TAR has been working very, very hard to fight for the restaurant owners and the restaurant workers, to be honest with you. So this is part 2 of our 4-part segment of this group. And tonight is the resume. Next week is interviewing, which we all want to get ready for that. And we all want to do that as soon as possible. And the fourth one will be how to market yourself on social media to get the job that you really want. So tonight, anything you want to say, Mr. Simpson, before we get started?
No, I'm excited about this evening because this is a really important one. And it's an important one that we deal with all the time. We look at hundreds and hundreds of resumes just in a week. So I think this is something that, we see a lot that people can really use some help. And, you've been doing this so long and I've been doing it a little bit myself. So I think it's going to be really helpful for people tonight.
Have you seen any resumes that make you shake your head?
About 100 yesterday and about 150 today.
And most of them are self-inflicted errors, is the point that we want to go through the night. I mean, have you seen any resumes that make you smile and go, yes?
Yeah, and it's so funny because we go through the resumes and then we contact people. And there's some that I can't get to my computer to contact them as quick as possible. And the others, they don't make it very long. It's a preview to who they are. So, if I see something that just looks very sloppy and that they didn't take any time to it, then that's not someone I want to talk to.
Yeah. And you're the recruiter. You're the buffer between the candidate and the hiring manager. Right. And the hiring managers, I mean, if we look at 100 a week, a big company probably looks at least that many a week. And if they see something sticking out that's an error, they're just going to toss it aside.
Because they don't have the time to deal with all of that.
So well, your resume says a lot about, like you said, it's who you are. It's the very first impression.
Right.
And it also, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but it dictates if you're going to be asked to do a phone screen. And because they're looking at a piece of paper, it's your business card, it's your resume, it's your, and I looked up what is a resume, and it's spelt a couple of different ways, but it's a formal document that serves to show a person's career background, skills. In most cases, it's created in order to help a candidate to land a new job. A traditional resume consists of a professional summary, work history, industry accomplishments, and educational sections. That being said, that's pretty easy. Yeah. The hard part is spelling and grammar and how long do you want it to be? And the first thing on my list tonight was, what is a resume really? And we've said it through the first 5 minutes. It is who you are to that person that doesn't know you.
Right.
And to me, that's what's really key. So, and there's a a resume is very personal, and a lot of people, and everybody you talk to is going to have a different opinion of what to do with a resume. We're going to hit a couple of those highlights. And then the first thing you want to ask yourself is, do I want to write it myself, or do I want to hire a professional resume writer? Obviously, hiring a professional resume writer is going to cost money, but you know you're going to get.
Right.
Exactly. They're basically going to interview you, and then they're going to write your career history, and they're going to put it in a format. You're going to write them a check, and you're done. Although if you retain them, they'll update it. They'll do things that you want. So if you decide to go that route, and there's several throughout the country, you want to interview a few. And you also want to look at some of their work. And if they do have a client list, you might want to talk to some of them to see. Because again, this is who you are in the career world. And so if you want to write it yourself, there's, in Microsoft Word, there's several templates. And I would say probably 70 to 80% of the resumes I look at are self-written, and they're using a template. Is that what you've noticed, or?
You see a lot of that. It's really interesting how that people do them, what they put in, what they don't put in, and especially you can help yourself if you don't have a huge job history. I think you can help yourself a lot with a lot of the skills and the things that you have that I find a lot of people leave out. And I'll also tell you, there are times that I look at a resume and there's just enough to get me to call them. And then I call them and I find out so much stuff that should have been on that resume that wasn't on that resume.
It wasn't on the resume. Yeah. Yeah. And, obviously, again, what we've mentioned in the beginning, that we look at a lot of resumes, and the hiring managers look at a lot of resumes, and it's what I call the ease of flow, the ease of reading a resume. Is the font too small that you have to squint?
Right.
Those are the little things that you want to, and to be honest with you, what I did is, and I hadn't written a resume in a long time because no one would hire me. But there's you can get online and look at resumes and go, oh, I like that format. I like that style. I like that font. I like the size of that font. I like the way it's laid out. It's only a page and a half, perfect length. One page is perfect. A page and a half is good. 4 or 5 pages is not, because they're not going to read them. But if there's a lot of examples, you can even go, if you're looking on ZipRecruiter or Indeed or Career Builders, you can look at resumes on there, and you can just get an idea of what a sample or an example of what you want to do. But the ease of reading and comprehending what you have written is extremely important to that hiring manager or recruiter. And what you said is key. You leave a lot of stuff out. You might get the resume tossed before you get a interview.
Right. What are the biggest mistakes that you see?
Just finishing up that thought.
Sorry.
Remember, the resume, as we've said, it's a personal and professional document. And because of the internet, it will be seen by thousands of people, all over the world.
Right.
So, that's your calling card. There's some resume do's and resume don'ts. For instance, somebody will live in a 713 area code, but their contact number is 512. Well, if they don't have their address, street and city and state. You don't know if they're in Austin, you know,
Right.
and so you might not, if all you see the 512 and you're looking for a job in Houston and there's no reference to the contact, you would have to call them to ask them that. And the resume is going to have to provoke you to do that.
Right.
So I think it's extremely important to have your name, your address, city, street, city, state, and zip, your email address, and your phone number. That way I know where you are, and I know, and also it's good that, like, if some companies do background checks, it's right there. And if you have, a lot of people have several email addresses. You just want to make sure the email address that you're using on your resume is a professional email address, maybe not Six Pack Dude.
Right.
Or
Yeah,
Bob.
and it's funny you say that, because I see that a lot. Jonathan Shep, Jones. I'm looking for someone very professional. That does not come off
That does not.
very professional. And I see it a lot. I see it a lot.
I do too. And then I always ask them, do you have another email address? And they'll ask why. And I'll say, well, why don't we find it professional? And maybe your name, Gary.Turner@gmail.com, something like that. So that's some, I'm not saying they're mistakes, but they're not the best way to present yourself.
Right.
The other one is, a big one is putting the years that you were somewhere, but not the months.
Yeah.
Well, if you only have years, that could be an 11-month difference between you starting in December or you starting in January.
Right.
So that's almost a year that they don't know.
Right.
So you don't have to have the day of your start date and your end date, but I would definitely have the month and the year.
Well,
one thing that go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, back to the other point for a second, with email address and phone number and all of that. Keep it up to date. I think what we've learned with COVID that's affected everyone is that people didn't think they were going to be looking for a job, or all of a sudden looking for a job, and they're scrambling. And everyone's trying to update their resumes and their addresses and things like that. So I don't think it hurts you to keep your resume up to date for situations like this.
Well, it's just a keystroke.
Right.
And that brings up a very, very valid point. So usually one of my first questions when I'm talking to them, I go, okay, your resume says for your most current job from 2015 to present, are you still there? No. Well, okay. When did you leave? Oh, well, I left about a year ago. But your resume says present. It's
right.
Not right. And then the next question is, what have you been doing for a year? Well, I had this other job. So, so that just, people, like being a recruiter, we're going to offer advice how to fix it, because I don't want to present something that is erroneous information.
Right.
And you don't either.
No.
And you certainly don't want to, if you're doing a direct submit to a company and it's just a keystroke, keep it updated. If something changes in your career history, make that change on your resume. The other thing that I fight with, should this be on your resume? Let's say say it's a current resume, but his last job ended in 2016. Well, then your immediate question is what have you been doing for 4 years?
Right.
Well, again, either the resume is outdated or he hasn't been doing anything for 4 years.
Right.
And I always wonder, should that be on your resume? Or should you just explain it if you get, I probably wouldn't call the guy.
Right.
And then the other thing is, let's say everything's fine, but back in 2008 to 2010, there's a gap. in your employment.
Right.
You know, should that be explained on your resume, or should that be explained in the, because I know one thing, and if I call you and submit you, I will find out the answer, because I guarantee you the hiring manager is going to ask that question. What did he do for those 2 years? So those are things that you can't change it because it's accurate data,
Right.
but you need to know how to explain it away to your
Right.
recruiter or to the hiring manager.
Right.
There's another opinion. I have mine, and you probably have yours. And I know a lot of people, other recruiters, that have a different opinion than me. I believe a lot of people say, how long should your resume go back of your career? And a lot of people say 10 years. To me, it's from after college or after your education and you step into the world. You know, that's my opinion. And that's something that you can read about or ask other people about. But I think everything that you've done to get paid for should be on your resume, whether it's in the hospitality industry or not. A lot of people say 10 years.
I go back to it a lot, to early in their career, and I use that a lot, way past 10 years. And it's driven to me to several different candidates from that, you know, because if you only do 10, but you've got, you know, in a certain field, you've got 25, 30 years in a certain field, boy, that's important, you know. Or I might be looking for something in a specific field and a specific category of that field, and you might not currently be doing that, but you may have done it in the past, which put those two together, and you're who I'm looking for. So I'm with you 100% on that.
I asked a guy the other day, I said, but you don't have any general manager experience. He goes, yes, I do. It's just not on my resume. What?
Right.
You know? And then also, you know, if you look at it and say, I graduated from Texas A&M in 2001, and then your first job was in 2010, you know,
right.
where those 10 years? Yeah.
Right.
So I would start your resume at your end of education, whether it's high school, GED, college, whatever it is, some college, graduation college. But when you step into the employment world, that's where I would start it.
You know, I think another thing that's very important is the skills you put on there. And you know, I'm running into this situation right now with something I've been looking for, and I've needed someone, and we're in the state of Texas. Bilingual is very important, and sometimes I've been finding people that I almost didn't call them. They're not bilingual, but they speak a lot more. They've been using it. They've been communicating on the job for years and years and years. And
right.
That's the kind of stuff that should have been put somewhere in their skills, because I almost didn't call them. And then they told me, oh, I had all this stuff but I'm not 100%. Well, yeah, but you're like 80.
Yeah.
You know, we're not talking about 5%. You've been communicating with and managing employees. So I think it's very important to make sure if you've got a skill that's relevant to the industry, you need to put it on there.
That's exactly right. And of the three most desired skills to date is bilingual, and in Texas, Spanish. The other one is high volume experience, managing high volume experience, either in a kitchen or in the front of the house. And what is high volume? 4.5 to 5 million is high volume. And the other one is the third one is having experience running a kitchen and running the front of the house. That's really important to the hiring manager or the owner of the restaurant that you're applying to.
But you also don't know what people are looking for. You know, we had a situation not so long ago. We were looking for a kitchen manager that had knife skills, butchery skills, and you talk to these people and they go, oh yeah, I've won awards. Why was that not on there?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
You've got awards. That's something that's going to help me push you into this position. So you need to put things on there like that.
Well, all the accreditations, all accomplishments, special educations or classes that you've taken, and awards that you've won should all be in there. That should all be in there. Because not only is it going to be on your resume, it should be in your summary letter, and it's definitely going to be in the biography that I would present if I was going to submit you to one of my clients.
Right, because those are things that are a step above.
Right. It's over above. Yeah.
And that could be the reason. You could have an equal resume, but things like that you were holding back could actually get you the job.
A special skill tells me that you are striving to be better than you are. You're always looking to learn, educate yourself, learn more about the industry or specific segment of the industry. And accomplished means you were better than a lot of other people in your company. That's what, and what do we want? And you want the superstars, you want the game breakers, and people that have those kind of things on their resume are going to get an interview.
Right.
Or read. Yeah. Let's see. How do you feel about at the beginning of the resume, and I'm not talking about the cover letter, I'm talking about the summary, career summary, historical summary, kind of your mission statement. Do you read those?
I do. I think you have to be careful. Some of them, I've gotten to the point where I've read many of those and they don't match up. That they will tell you they're the king of the world or the queen of the world, and then you talk to them and you're like, well, where are the, you said you were this and this and this and this and this. I don't see it. I don't see it. You said you're a superstar. I'm not seeing it. So I think you've got to be careful, be humble, but make sure it's something that other people see about you, not just something you feel, but that other people, because I have ended interviews quickly after reading things of that nature and went, oh, this is.
Yeah, it doesn't match up to what I talked to. Yeah. Well, the summary, the mission statement or the summary is like, it should be like where you are, where you've been, where you are, and where you want to be, and how, if you got the job with this company, how you could make that company better. That's what I see as a mission statement. And a lot of people go, well, isn't that bragging? No, it's not. It's just stating, your intents. The reason you're sending this resume is because I've got 20 years of management experience. I've got multi-unit experience. I've got $5 million worth of volume experience. I'm bilingual. I was a kitchen manager for 4 years in a $5 million. Those are things that if they're in the summary, they're going to continue to read.
Yeah, and I like that. I like that a lot, Gary, compared to I'm a passionate, I love that's the stuff I see a lot. And I go right past that. Well, I'm with you 100%.
Yeah. The intangibles that you speak of, but don't overdo it with them. The intangibles come out when you're speaking to the interviewee and they can feel your passion, hear your passion, and see your passion. Right now, they're reading words on a piece of paper.
Right. It's interesting. It's very interesting. Sometimes I have found, and you probably have as well, they knock the resume out of the park, and then you talk to them on the phone and they can't match that, so they probably had someone write it, or vice versa. I think you need to match, don't you?
Match what you're saying about what you wrote?
Well, so what your resume and you have to be one. You know what I mean? I'll start talking about this resume, and they've either not read it, or, or they're not aware that, when we're interviewing them, I'm looking at their resume. I'm going over their resume.
Right.
I'm talking to them about their resume. And you need to be able to match and know what you put out there.
Well, hopefully you know what's on it, since you either wrote the draft for your resume writer, or you wrote the resume. But one way around that is, I tell everybody, if you're going to do a Zoom or a Skype or a phone interview, have your resume right in front of you and refer to everything that they refer to, so you can recite what your resume says. Then if you want to expand off on that, that's not on your resume, go ahead. But don't be too lengthy with your answer, but have your resume in front of you when you call.
Yeah, because us as recruiters and whoever's hiring, we've already gone over the resume. There are specific things that we want to ask questions about. We want to know more. So we've already prepared ourselves when we contact you or when we have this interview with you. So we know your resume. So if you're having a problem with that, that's a red flag.
Yeah. And, typically I'll go, have you thought about a professional resume writer? Or I say, listen, why don't you work on this? Now, we as recruiters in our company, we will not adjust or change a resume or do anything to a resume. If you want to redo your resume and send it back to me, I will give you my personal input and professional input, but I won't adjust your resume. That's what resume writers do.
Right.
But we were talking about mistakes or things that you go, that's weird. And I don't see it that often, but when I do, it's shocking. Where I guess it's just the standard knowledge that when you write your resume, when you started your career history, you started with your most current job and position.
Yeah.
And you went down, you went to the past. So 2015 to 2020 would be your first job or present.
Right.
And then it goes from 2012 to 15, and then 2010 to 12. But I do see quite often where it's reversed. Their furthest down the line job is first on their resume. And I always suggest that they switch that around, because it's just such a known thing that people do, that when they see that, they get confused. And then if you let's say, okay, let's use Pappas as a example. Okay, I worked 2 years at Pappasitos, and then I worked 2 years at, they'll know who this is, but let's say let's use Front Burner. I worked 2 years at Whiskey Cake. Then I worked 3 years at Mexican Sugar, or 1 year at Mexican Sugar. Then I worked 1 year at Velvet Taco. And you're going, God, this guy jumps around a lot. But then you realize it's all the same company.
Right.
That happens a lot too.
Right.
So, you could come in Front Burner, and then under Front Burner, you got where you worked. You could go Front Burner from 2015 to 2020, and then you put the under dates in the other ones, because a lot of people would think you're a jumper where you're not. It's the same company.
Yeah, I see that too. And for us, we know who Front Burner is, so we can look very, very quickly and understand that. But that's a really good point. I was going to ask you a couple things that I see on resumes, and I'm curious what you think about it. Explanations on why they're not there anymore. I don't know if you've seen that before, but people will say, I left because of, and I've been seeing more and more of that. So it'll have the job, from 2015 to 2017, left because of this. And sometimes it's because of the company, or sometimes, they were looking for another opportunity, or whatever that may be. What do you think of that?
Well, I'll tell you, the one that I saw that made me go, was job left because business closed. The next one left because business closed. And then the third one left because, and you're going, well, gosh, you're bad luck or you're a bad manager.
Right.
You know, so I think those, in my opinion, is that conversation should be had in an interview.
Okay.
Now, that being said, if you were only somewhere for 6 months or only somewhere for less than a year, I would explain it. You know, because they might not even want to talk to you if you were only, you know, because the one things that people look for, and I know we talked about this last week, but it's just as important as it can be, is career progression and tenure.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not anything on your resume that you can change. That's your history. You know,
Right.
That's accurate history, but you can. And I don't know if I would explain it in my on the resume. I might explain it in the cover letter, or if
Yeah.
it can be done with a line. You know,
Yeah, I think it's sorry to didn't mean to interrupt you here, but
no,
I think that's very important. You run into a situation, and I've had one recently, where someone hadn't been working for a year, and so we're looking at it, and they're wondering, well, what's happened? Why are they not there? And you look at it, and when you talk to the candidate, you find out that the business had closed, and he was a veteran. He had the opportunity to go back to school and get training for free. And so he did that, and he was able to get a certificate out of that. So that's something that probably should be in some aspect, whether it's a line or the cover letter, should be there, because it's not like he's just been sitting on the couch eating Oreos. He was actually doing something to better himself as a candidate.
Cheetos.
Well, I like Oreos, so but I can't. You get the orange on your hands, and then it's
the other one example in that same vein is you know, a guy is talking about career progression. So the guy's a manager in Pittsburgh, and then all of a sudden he's a bartender in Dallas.
Right.
And you're going,
Yeah.
And he goes, well, a family member got very ill, and I had to come home and work for them. I didn't know how long I was going to be there, so I didn't take a management job. I took a bartending job to have income so I could take care of my relative.
Yeah.
When I go back to Pittsburgh, I'll have my old job back, or I might not have my old, you know, however, but that's an acceptable career progression glitch.
Right.
You know, as opposed to GM and then a bartender, and they can't remember why.
Right. And unfortunately, we see that as well. So we both go through tons of resumes. What are the things you look at right off of the bat that either you're like no or yes?
As I read through it, and I was going to say we were talking about mistakes. It's just the flow of the way it reads. I mean, like, I do like the way that people will put the company and the dates and the position in bold.
Yeah.
And then they'll put the description in there. And basically all you want to do is, all you want to know is, you know, what were your responsibilities? You know, what was your volume, and how many people reported to you?
Right.
And who is your direct report uplink? Things like that, you know, in a very short paragraph.
Right.
But where I get turned off is blatant and just right there, either spelling errors or grammatical errors.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's been a lot of people where I missed it and submitted the guy, and he goes, yeah, he's got a great resume, but he has no eye to detail. And I'm thinking, well, how would you know that? And he goes, well, because he misspelled 7 words, you know.
Yeah.
And no periods. I write like E.E. Cumming. I use very little punctuation, and if I use a comma, it's a dash, not a comma. But that's just in my personal writing.
Right.
Again, I mean, everything I ever write that's going to go to someone that is important, I have somebody proofread it for me. I always have a second set of eyes proofread it, because the most glaring thing is your lack of attention to detail. And spelling a word right that should be spelt right. And spell check sometimes the word's spelt right, but it's the wrong word.
Right.
And so you just need to proofread it, and before you push send, proofread it again, and just keep changing it until it's perfect. To me, that's a subtle killer of your chances to get an interview.
Absolutely. That'll stop me from calling someone very quickly.
Because you're just not paying attention.
Right.
Yeah. And again, that'd be like spelling your name wrong on your business card.
Right. Well, and it's those, like you said, those little details that are just so important.
But that's not glaring as you asked for. That's things that you read as you go through and just go, God,
Right.
that's the fourth word he's misspelled. And you're
Right.
making notes on the sideline,
Right.
of the resume. I'll print them out and then start. Like, you misspelled this word, and circle it, misspelled.
Right.
The one thing is where there's just a name. Even though all the content is extremely important, the format is important too. The borders, the margins.
I'm so glad you said that. The one that's been driving me nuts is when their picture and it's hanging over half of their resume if it comes through ZipRecruiter or Indeed, and I can't get rid of that, and I won't deal with it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to clear it off, and I'm like, I can't read this thing.
Well, our attitude is to go help them, because that's what we do. But if I was a hiring manager that had 30 more resumes to look at, that just tells me if you don't care, then I don't care.
Right.
And that sounds harsh, but I mean, if you're an HR person and you got to fill 10 slots, you're not going to waste your time on things that shouldn't have happened.
Right.
So that's
well, and we're not talking about someone new. We're talking about people that have been out in the workforce for 20, 30 years at times, where you look at these resumes and it looks like they just started. You notice that as well?
When was the last time you updated your resume? Oh, probably about 5 or 6 years ago. That should be constantly upgraded.
Yeah.
Every time you change your air conditioning filters, update your resume. Put it on your calendar.
Well, I'm telling, we talked about this last week, but I think everyone's going to learn from what's happened with COVID. And, it's something that we're all affected by. And in the job market, it is, every day we talk to tons of people, and everyone, it's because of COVID.
Yeah, I'll be happy when I see a resume where the end date's not March 2020. Yeah, that's just really depressing, to be honest with you. You just see hundreds of them. But the one thing about our industry is most everybody has just got great attitudes. And if you know what you're doing, and you know how to present yourself and how to represent yourself and how to put your best foot forward, you're going to get hired. Because everyone is always looking for talent, and everyone is always looking for that Michael Jordan. Yeah. Somebody to help them win a world championship, and your next hire that walks in that front door, sends that resume, could be it, And I look at a resume and go, but I'm going to read every resume anyway, because there could be something in there that totally changes my opinion,
Yeah, and I will tell you, and you probably do this, I've gone back 2 or 3 times. Like, maybe I missed something, or maybe there's there are times where I will go back and go, there's something here. I just got to go find it.
Yeah. My favorite one was on the resume where the guy wrote that for 16 months, he worked for the government. He was with the government. Mm. And I kept pressing him, and he finally just broke and said, "Okay, I was in prison." but his resume said he worked for the government. He goes, well, actually, I did because I was teaching other prisoners how to, once they got out, how to interview for a job. So he was getting time off for good behavior. Yeah, and I said, well, that's a nice try.
So, what is your opinion on putting your picture on the resume?
You know, I just don't have one. I'm probably 60% no and 40% yes, to be honest with you. You know, I think about, well, what if you put it on the cover letter? Okay, maybe. I just think a resume is a written document, you know.
But you know, it's interesting.
What about you?
I ran into a client who is from the UK, and they put him on all their resumes.
Yeah, yeah.
And she said, I'm so impressed when I see people over here that do it, because that's something I'm used to. You know, I don't know how much weight it had in it, but I know it was something that they like to see.
Well, the don'ts would be, don't do a black and white senior high school picture. You know, if you're going to do it, do a professional picture. You know.
Well, and I'm so glad you say that. I'm also have dabbled with the camera. I'm a photographer as well, and you know, we're telling people to go hire for a resume writer. Well, you might want to go hire someone to take your picture as well. You know, take some pride in it if you're going to do it. Put a nice shirt on, you know, and make sure your hair is combed, and don't use your cell phone. Cell phone's good for a lot of things, but if this is something and you're going to take the time to do a professional resume, you know, you don't have to spend a lot, but you can get a professional picture.
Yeah, your background's important. I mean, there shouldn't be a poster of Farrah Fawcett behind you, or a plant that looks like it's growing out of your head.
Right.
Yeah. You want to make sure. Yeah, professional. Yeah, Olin Mills.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I err on traditional, and traditional in my career lifetime is no. I mean, I'd say it's less than 1% of the resumes I see it's got a picture on it. And funny you mentioned, and usually it's a resume from Europe.
Yeah, I would say my percentage is higher than and maybe that's newer resumes. And I think, you know, that's an interesting point though, Gary. Do you try to stay up with the trend? I mean, things change. So as things change and the way they're formatted, the things they do, is that something you want to keep up with?
Of the resume?
With the resume, the latest styles and the things that people are doing.
Yeah, you know, again, to me, it's a formal document, and I see some people it's on pink paper with squiggly lines all around it and borders. I don't know about that. I think it should be on. If you're going to go into an interview and here, go over there, and go into take it to someone, should be on good stock paper, you know, and not cardstock, but you know,
sure.
And you should make sure there's nothing on it and run it. And I don't know, sometimes staple it, sometimes don't staple it. I don't staple them. I would paper clip them. But as far as the format goes and keeping up with it, of course, most of the resumes you and I look at now are online.
Yeah.
You know, so it's hard to tell what, you know, but I think it should just be a white sheet of paper with black print on it. You know, but that's me, and I'm an old guy.
Right. But you're looking at people's resumes. So that's an important aspect, right? Is that you're going to get all types of different people that look at your resume.
You know, we were talking earlier about skills and accomplishments and accreditations, et cetera.
Yep.
And another thing that I'm getting a lot of questions from clients going, I need to make sure that they've used, what POS systems have they used? What back of the house accounting systems have they, or management systems have they worked with? what payrolls, because all this is computerized now and digital. And, you know, to have somebody that, yes, I've used this, or I've used Compete, you know, I use Aloha,
Right.
you know, that's important to be on there too. Yes, I can use Excel, Microsoft Word, PowerPoint. Uh, those things are for skills. Those are very important. If you're, you know, to where they don't have to train you.
Right.
You know, so I would definitely make sure any computer skills, software skills, back of the house systems, I would make sure all that is on your resume.
Now, do you want to put everything on there when it comes to job history? You know, if there was are you putting everything?
Well, that's what we talked about earlier with the 10 years or the whole resume.
Well, but if we're talking about, though, taking it a little bit in a different place, then if it's out of the industry, so if you're applying in this case in the hospitality industry, do you want to put that you were, you know, you were at
Retail.
yeah, Barnes and Noble for 2 years?
It's part of your, if they do a background check, it's going to show up.
Well, not that you're hiding it, but do you want to just get right to the point that, hey, I've got, you know, 20 years of restaurant experience. And so I'm not saying trying to hide anything, because you're not going to hide anything. Absolutely. But do you need, but well, we learn that all the time, but
I am.
I am too. There's shorts though. You stood up. I should stand. There's shorts.
I'm wearing shorts.
Yeah. But you see what my point is here,
Right.
is not you're hiding anything by any means, but
Well,
you just want to focus to where you are.
two things to answer that. One, I've seen it where it said relevant experience,
Okay.
and they only put their hospitality experience in there.
Yeah.
But then you could have a gap, you know, and you could put in that gap other industry or something. But, you know, then the other thing, this is going kind of back to the length. Let's say you've had a bunch of jobs, so you end it in 10 years, and below that you put other relevant experience, and you don't put any paragraph. You just put Papados 2008 to 2010. You know, so and so Culver's 2007 to 2008.
Right.
You know, you could just list those other relevant jobs and put manager, server, whatever you want to put. But yeah, I think to me it would bring up about good questions from your, especially if you left the industry, went and worked at Barnes and Noble, and then got back in the industry. To me, that's a perfect answer. That when your interviewer says, "What, you know, I thought that there was other things out there, but I worked there for a year and I missed the industry so much that I came back to the industry that I love." Great answer. Great answer. If it's true.
Right.
Yeah, I think everything should be on your resume. You know,
And then, you know, we talked about
unless it's
descriptions.
prison.
Well, yeah. Yeah, then it's you work for the government.
Yeah.
Be creative. We talk about these descriptions, you know, short description, but what if you've been somewhere for 20 years? I mean, it does happen. I know not much, but
One job?
yeah, if you've been at one job for 10 years, you know, should you really, hey, I did this and this and this and this and this and this and this? Or just keep it short still?
Well, if it's the only thing on your resume, then that's the only thing that you have to say. But you need to, well, inside that, because unfortunately, you know, you'd be thinking, oh my God, he was there for 10 years, you know, but wait, he never became a GM. You know, he was only an assistant manager for 10 years. I'd like to know why that happened. And then the other thing, let's say you were a general manager for 10 years, because a lot of places, you know, the longer you're there, the more money you make.
Right.
You know, but then you start thinking about, yeah, I headed up marketing. I did, you know, I was part of the community. You know, you start other things that you were doing to
Sure.
promote the business for that restaurant. You know, I trained 7 managers. I trained 10 general managers. You know, I put in a new beverage program. You want to go through your accomplishments and things that you did, because unfortunately, long tenure, although it sounds like, golly, congratulations, it could be a detriment, because the hiring manager is going to say, well, he doesn't know how to do it any other way, and he's going to try to make us whatever he was, you know, a Papacitos because he was there for 10 years.
Sure.
You know, and so it's so. But if you expand what your responsibilities and your accomplishments were, it could be it could work. Yeah. I mean, I've got a client now that says, "Oh my God, this guy's been with this company for 20 years. Get him in here." You know, he absolutely wanted that.
Right. Well, and I think, you know, we talked about this before, but really the whole point of all of this is to get you to that interview, is make that resume to the point where someone says, I want to talk to this person. I want more.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Going into your notes there.
So, well, actually, I want to let everybody know this is a blog, and just another little promoting. If you visit www.hprosearch.com and go to career opportunities, if you are someone that's looking at a job, we have several jobs on there throughout Texas and some other states.
And it's currently it's updated all the time. So definitely something you want to look at. And Gary, we want to
always adding new jobs too.
Always adding new jobs, and we were excited to announce that we got a new YouTube channel. So we will be putting job tips and all kinds of different videos out there to help you in your job search.
And if anybody has, we've got the next 2 topics laid out, and then we'll probably continue with another segment. But if anybody has a topic that they would like to discuss or for us to talk, please just email Gary or Carrie at hprosearch.com. It's Carey and Gary, and let us know what you'd like to do, and we'll look at it and discuss it and explore it. And if it's something that would help everybody, we'll certainly consider it.
Well, and within these series that we're doing, you can just send a question. We'll always find time to answer your question as well.
Yes, correct. So the hiring process for most companies, restaurant companies, and most companies is as follows. They review the candidate's resume, either from a direct apply, a recruiter presentation, or an online application. And a direct reply is if they were to take a paper resume and fold it up and put it in an envelope and then try to figure out where to buy a stamp and then and mail it. And then online is just push and send. So that's number 1. They will review your resume. Then number 2 is determine through the resume if an initial phone screen should be scheduled. Number 3, schedule an interview face-to-face or video. Number 3, check references and background. Invite candidate for an OJI, which is an on-the-job interview where it's a follow shift for a couple hours where you meet some people and you just get the feel of a dinner, of a volume hour. The final interview and hopefully offer, and deliver the job contract, offer letter, and establish a start date. So that's from presentation to hire. What was the first thing on there? The resume. So that's, nothing happens if that doesn't happen. So that's why we're trying to just, you know, really, really stress how important it is that not only how it flows, but also that everything in there should be in there. Shouldn't be too long, shouldn't be too short, and it should be spelt right. The dates, the months, the years, the full address, all that should be there, because the impression of your resume, and I'm not discounting experience and tenure and career progression, is going to dictate whether you get a phone screen. So it's the first thing in the process.
And it's very important if you do hire someone to write your resume that you give them all the information. They can only write a resume based on what you're giving them. So make sure if there's a skill or something they need to know, make sure you give them that.
Well, check out reviews because some of them are good. They'll basically interview you and they'll extract what they want out of you because they know what they're doing.
Right.
I mean, they do. And to me, if I were to get fired tomorrow, I would hire a resume writer. I would.
I did hire one years ago. So
did you?
I did.
How was your experience?
It was good. It was good. I did reviews to find someone that was really good. And she did exactly what you said. Spent a little time with me, interviewed, got it all there, and boom, knocked it out the first time. And I had been in a job for a long time. So, you know, it was new for me to jump back in, and I was really glad that I hired. It was worth every penny to do it.
Yeah, I think it is. Now, you know, it can be anywhere from a few dollars to a whole bunch of dollars. And then, you know, and then there's some add-ons that they'll do. They'll teach you how to interview, some of them.
Right.
If you get some with some accreditations. But, you know, if you're really serious, it might not be a bad idea to interview some people. And you might have some friends that use one like you. You gave a testimonial. You didn't say who it was, and it doesn't really matter, but you might have a friend that go, oh, my neighbor 2 doors down, you know, he said he had a great experience, and I called her to talk to her. Right. Just to get some information for this this session. And yeah, it was very, you know, we're not into plugging on this show,
right.
But if you just Google resume writers Houston or resume writers Dallas or resume writers Galveston, which don't do that because they're being evacuated, then you'll find and ask for a client list and call them. You know, right. Do your due diligence.
Right.
And it saves you a lot of time. And if you want to do it yourself, look at samples, look at examples, and Google, how can I write my own perfect resume? But hopefully tonight we gave you some good tips that will help you. If you've got a resume out there and we said some things that you have done what you should have done, you might pull it, rework it, and send it out. You just want accurate information.
And if you've watched this video and you have a question, send it to us and we will answer it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Send it to us. And then we just got a few minutes. So now next week is interviewing. Which I love interviewing. It's just you get to know somebody. But, you know, some people, they're very formal. They're very dodgy. Oh, yeah, I did help you with your resume. Yeah, somebody just sent me a message. You helped me with my resume. Some people are, you know, they're, I lost my totally train of thought.
Yeah, it is interesting on the interview process, especially after you've looked at their resume and then you talk to them.
Right.
I mean, haven't you before where you got one vibe and then you talk to them on the phone and you're like, wow.
More often than you would think.
Didn't expect that.
And then and the one thing we'll talk about next week is I had somebody tell me if it's a phone interview, they still know if you're smiling, which I think is hilarious. But you know what? It is true. Yeah. You know, and it's just the mannerisms, the accuracy. There's just a whole lot. There's a whole litany of things that make the resume go the way you want it to go. And if you know some of them, you know, it could be the difference between getting the job or not getting the job.
Absolutely. Well, we'll be back next Tuesday.
Yeah. I love Texas coming in. But yeah, we'll see y'all next week. Thanks a lot for your time. You guys are great, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you very much.
Recruiter guys off.
Good night.